I've never been the type to believe in ghosts. Not because I think I'm smarter than everyone else, but because I've never had a reason to. My childhood was normal, my life pretty average. No shadows watching me from corners, no whispers when the lights went out. Horror didn't feel real until last Halloween. Every time I tell this story, I get chills. Not because it's some exaggerated, spooky campfire tale, but because every second of it actually happened. And I can't shake the fear that it might not be over yet. Halloween night started like every other here in Ridgewood. Families set up their decorations, kids ran around in cheap costumes, and the smell of caramel apples filled the air. I was 19 and home from college for a week, mostly to get away from stress and midterms. My little cousin Noah had begged me to take him trick-or-treating. His mom, my aunt, was working late at the hospital, so I agreed. We started early, walking from house to house, filling his pumpkin bucket with enough sugar to power a small city. He was dressed as a pirate, plastic sword and everything, and he kept swinging it at imaginary monsters. Where's the treasure?" he shouted, running ahead of me. "You're gonna stab someone with that thing," I yelled, laughing. Everything felt perfectly normal. That changed when we got to Ridge Lane. Every kid in town knew the rumors about the house at the end of the street. The Delaney house, they called it. Supposedly haunted, supposedly cursed, depending on which bored teenager you asked. I'd heard stories. A family disappeared inside sometime in the 90s. A neighbor hung himself on the porch a few years later. Weird lights flickering in the windows even when it's abandoned. Police chalked it up to trespassing teens using flashlights. But on Halloween night, nobody went near it, except Noah. He stared at it the way a moth stares at a flame. The house was dark, no decorations, no lights, just dead silence and a sagging porch that looked like it was ready to collapse. "Noah," I said carefully. "We're skipping that one, but maybe they have good candy." "The full-size bars," he argued. Before I could stop him, he dashed across the road and up the broken front walk. His pirate sword dragged along the concrete, making a sharp scraping sound that echoed too loud in the still air. "Noah," I hissed, chasing after him. He ignored me, climbing the steps and knocking 3 times on the rotting door. Knock, knock, knock. I froze behind him. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. "No one's home," I said. "Let's go." He didn't move. The door slowly creaked open. Nobody stood there. No sound, no movement, just blackness, like the inside of the house swallowed all the light. Noah stepped inside. "No!" I grabbed him, but something icy brushed past my arm, like a cold breath or a hand. My skin tingled and went numb. I stumbled back, pulling Noah with me. He screamed like he suddenly woke up from a trance, dropping his candy bucket. We didn't wait. We ran, but the door slammed shut behind us. Hard, like someone kicked it from the inside. I told myself it was the wind. I told myself a lot of lies that night. By the time we got home, Noah was quiet. Too quiet. Not a word, not a complaint, just blank. His mom got home later and found him sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. "He's probably tired," she said, but I saw his hand trembling. And he kept whispering something. I leaned closer. "She's coming." A chill crawled up my spine. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that door opening on its own. I kept convincing myself it was a trick, a prank, anything other than what it felt like. Then at 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed, a text from Noah's number. "She's in the hallway." My lungs locked up. I stared at the screen, trying to think rationally. Maybe he was pranking me. Then another message came. "Don't look at her face." I jumped out of bed and threw my bedroom door open. I stared down the hallway, pitch black and empty. My phone buzzed again. A picture message. I don't know how to describe what I saw. At first I thought the photo was too dark to make out. Then my eyes adjusted. Standing behind me, just behind me, was a woman. Bare feet. filthy white nightgown clinging to her thin body. Her neck craned forward unnaturally, her hair matted and hanging like wet seaweed. And her face wasn't a face. It was a stretched mask of skin. No features except a jagged, gaping hole where a mouth should be. I turned around. Nothing. I told myself my brain was tricking me. Like when you think you see someone in a mirror, but it's just shadows. But my phone buzzed once more. She's closer. I dropped the phone, slammed my door shut, and didn't sleep. The next morning, I went straight to my cousin's house. His mom answered, looking exhausted. "Is Noah okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "He threw up all night," she said. "I kept hearing him saying something about a lady also." She lowered her voice. "Did you see the scratches?" "Scratches?" I asked. She led me to his room. His bedroom window's inside frame was shredded, wood splintered like an animal clawed it. And on the glass were long, greasy streaks like someone dragged their fingers across it from the outside, high up, far above where a human arm could reach. Noah sat on his bed, hugging his knees. "She wants you," he whispered. My stomach twisted. "Who does?" He shook his head violently. "I can't say. She's listening." His eyes flicked toward the corner of the room. Nothing was there. But the air felt wrong, thick and heavy, like the room itself was breathing. I bolted. For 2 days, I tried to forget what happened. I avoided Ridge Lane. I avoided the mirror in my hallway. I tried to pretend Halloween was over and the nightmare died with it. But that house wasn't done with me. Because on the third night I woke up to giggling. A child's giggling. I sat up, heart pounding. The sound came from inside my closet. "Noah," I whispered, knowing that made zero sense. Slowly. The closet door creaked open. A small plastic pirate sword slid out across the floor. Noah's sword, the one he dropped at the Delaney house. I scrambled to the other side of the room. Before I could move, my lamp flickered, then switched off completely. And in the darkness, a woman's voice, soft but distorted, like her throat was full of broken glass. He invited me. I ran out of my house barefoot, screaming. I didn't stop until I reached the streetlight on the corner. I stood there shaking, staring back at my dark house, terrified she'd appear in the window. She didn't, but someone else did. Noah. He stepped into view just inside my doorway, smiling. A lifeless, unnatural smile stretched across his face like he was wearing someone else's skin. Then his head twitched sideways in a sharp, painful jerk. "You left me," he said. Except it wasn't Noah's voice. Too deep. Too broken. I backed away. "Where's your mom? Noah, let's just get help." He raised his hand, the plastic sword pointed right at me. "She wants you to come back," he said. "You open the door." I ran. I didn't look back. I left him there. Yes, I left my own cousin behind. I went to the police. They searched the house. Noah and his mom were gone. The house was empty, completely. No toys. No photos. No beds. Like they never existed. Except one thing was left behind on the floor in his bedroom. A broken picture frame of me and Noah trick-or-treating. My face had been scratched out. I couldn't go home after that. I checked into a cheap motel outside town. The kind where the lights flicker and the walls smell like cigarettes no one remembers smoking. I locked myself inside, blocked the door with furniture. Still couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow felt alive. Then around midnight, someone knocked. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, deliberate. I held my breath. Another knock. This time, the bathroom mirror cracked. A whisper. Followed so close it felt like it came from inside my head. "Open the door." I curled into the corner of the bed, hands over my ears, whispering, "Please go away," over and over, like a child trying to pretend the dark can't see them. I didn't open the door. I never let her in. Eventually, the knocking stopped. The silence was worse. When dawn finally came, I left that motel and never returned to Ridgewood. I transferred colleges, deleted my social media, changed my number, stayed in crowded places. Years passed. I almost convinced myself I imagined it all. That trauma and fear twisted my memory, almost because 2 nights ago, a package arrived at my new apartment. No return address. Inside was a single item, a plastic pirate sword, and written on the blade in what looked like rust or dried blood. You left me. I don't know how she found me. I don't know how much longer I have. I hear footsteps outside my door every night now. Slow. Familiar. I'm writing this in case I disappear too. In case someone finds this and thinks it's just another scary Halloween story. It's not. If you see a house with a door that opens on its own, if you hear giggling from a dark closet, if you see a woman with a torn mouth and no eyes, don't look at her face, and whatever you do, don't open the door. I used to run a small local radio station. Nothing fancy, just a late-night program for insomniacs, truckers, and lonely people who liked hearing someone's voice at 3 a.m. The show was called Midnight Whispers. It ran from midnight until 4 in the morning every Friday. My job was to read eerie short stories, take call-ins, and sometimes play local music. It was the perfect job for someone like me, quiet, solitary, and hidden behind a microphone. I loved the stillness of the night, the hum of the equipment, and the soft glow of the on-air sign. Until one Halloween night. That was the night everything changed. The night I stopped doing radio. The night I heard her voice. The Calet was October 31st, 2 years ago. The station was practically empty except for me and old Rick, the janitor who mostly napped in the back office. I came in at 11:30 p.m. carrying a thermos of coffee and a flash drive full of Halloween-themed stories to read on air. Ghosts, haunted houses, classic creepy stuff. Nothing too scary. At midnight, the show went live. Good evening, night owls, I said into the mic, my voice warm and steady. It's Halloween and you're listening to Midnight Whispers. Tonight's theme, real hauntings, true encounters, and all the things that go bump in the dark. The soundboard lights blinked, the music faded, and the call started. Most of the callers were the usual types. Drunk college kids pretending to be vampires. Lonely people talking about lost loves. Then around 1:13 a.m. a call came through that didn't show up on the caller ID. Just a blank line. No number. Midnight Whispers, you're on air, I said. At first nothing. Just a faint static hum, then a soft woman's voice. Weak, breathy. Don't hang up. Something in the way she said it froze me. Her tone wasn't playful or dramatic. It was pleading, desperate. Ma'am, you're on air. What's your name? A pause. You shouldn't have come back. What do you mean? Then the line went dead. The silence in the booth felt heavy. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the board, waiting for the red call light to go off. It didn't. The phone was still connected, except no one was there. I turned the volume down and switched to music to reset my nerves. Just interference, I told myself. Probably a prank. But then, while the song played, the static returned. It wasn't coming from the phone. It was coming from my headset. A faint whisper, buried beneath the music. You were here before, I froze. You forgot what you did. Then the static spiked so loud I ripped off my headset. The tape around 2 a.m. I went to the back room to check the call logs, thinking maybe I could trace that weird call. The computer showed nothing. No incoming number, no audio file saved. Every show gets automatically recorded, but that night's folder was empty. Completely blank. That shouldn't have been possible. Rick, the janitor, shuffled by with his mop. Everything okay, boss? I nodded too fast. Yeah, just some prank caller, he smirked. Halloween, huh? Ghosts love the airwaves. He walked off laughing, but something about what he said stuck with me. Ghosts love the airwaves. When I returned to the booth, the recording light was blinking again. I hadn't touched it. The system had automatically started recording another file, time-stamped 2:07 a.m. I hit play, static. Then, faint breathing. Then my own voice. Except I hadn't been talking. Why did you come back? My voice said, low and shaky. You said you wouldn't. My stomach dropped. I hadn't said those words. Not on air. Not off it. I scrubbed through the file, my pulse racing. Every few seconds there was more of my voice, different tone, different cadence, like someone else was using my mouth to speak. Then a second voice joined in. A woman's, the same one from the call. You left me in the dark, she whispered. Now I'll leave you there too. I slammed the keyboard, closing the file. My breath came fast, sharp. The room suddenly felt 10 degrees colder. The studio at 3 a.m., I decided to wrap the show early. I didn't care if my boss fired me. I just wanted to go home. But as I stood to leave, the power flickered. The on-air light blinked once or twice, then turned back on. The board came alive by itself, channels opening, sliders moving. The microphone light turned red, and in my headset, through the static, "You can't leave." I ripped the headset off and ran for the door. It wouldn't open. The lock was jammed. I twisted it, kicked it, nothing. Then the monitors came on by themselves, displaying the live feed from the hallway camera. Someone was standing there. A woman. Long black hair. Pale skin, slick with moisture. Wearing what looked like a hospital gown. Stained and dripping. Her head tilted slightly as she stared directly into the camera. Except her eyes were wrong. Wide, cloudy, almost like waterlogged glass. And her mouth hung open too far, jaw stretched until I thought it would split. She lifted one arm and pressed it against the camera lens. When she pulled it away, there was a dark handprint smeared across the glass. But here's the part that froze me completely. The same handprint appeared on the inside of the studio window, right next to me. The recording eye backed into the corner, fumbling for my phone. I tried calling 911, but the call wouldn't connect, just static again. Then, from the control board, a soft click. The recording light blinked back on. The speakers came alive with whispering voices, dozens of them, overlapping, gasping, crying, begging. All distorted, all wrong, and then, under all that noise, one voice rose clear. Play the tape, the flash drive, the one with the Halloween stories. My shaking hand slid it into the USB port, half out of reflex, half out of pure fear. The system opened the file on its own and began to play. But instead of the stories I recorded earlier, I heard something else, a woman's scream. Long, shattered, cut off halfway, then silence, then a man's voice, my voice, panting, whispering. She wouldn't stop screaming. I had to make her stop. I dropped the headset, staring at the screen as line after line of text scrolled by in the console log. Random letters, gibberish, until one line froze in place. You remember now. My mind flashed like a sudden burst of lightning through fog. A memory. A road, rain, a car crash, a woman in the passenger seat screaming, and me, reaching for the radio dial yelling, "Stop screaming, please, stop!" The crunch of glass. The spin of tires. Silence. Then black. The truth. I didn't remember it until that night, but years ago, before Midnight Whispers, I had crashed my car on Ridge Road during a storm. My girlfriend Leah was with me. I fell asleep at the wheel. She didn't survive. I survived with a concussion and no memory of the crash. At least that's what they said. The radio that night had been playing static when we hit the guardrail. And now that same static filled the studio. The woman's voice returned. Louder. Closer. You promised you'd never leave me in the dark again. I turned slowly toward the glass. She was standing behind it, inside the soundproof booth. Leah. Her hair dripping with rainwater, her body twisted like she'd been pulled from wreckage. Her head leaned sideways, eyes locked on mine. You forgot, she said, voice cracking with pain. But I didn't. She pressed her hand to the glass, and the room temperature plummeted. My breath came out in mist. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't mean... The lights flickered violently. Say it, she hissed. I'm sorry, Leah. Her mouth widened into a grin that split too far. Her reflection blurred, melting, dissolving until the shape in the glass was no longer human. Then the on-air sign exploded, showering red sparks across the floor. The soundboard blared with overlapping screams, mine included. The aftermath, they found me the next morning. The cops said the power surge shorted out the equipment, caused an electrical fire. I was lucky to be alive, they said. The recordings were all corrupted, except one. A 4-hour broadcast file titled Last Show MP3 No. One claims to have played it, but sometimes, late at night, listeners swear they hear it looping quietly on an unused AM frequency around here, somewhere between static. And if you listen closely, you can still hear my voice whispering through the hum. Don't turn it off. Winked. What I know now, it's been 2 years since that night. I never went back to radio. I don't even listen to music anymore. Too much silence between the notes. But every Halloween at exactly 1:13 a.m. my phone rings. No number. No name. Just static. Sometimes I answer. Sometimes I hear her breathing. Sometimes I hear my own voice, whispering back at me. And last night, for the first time, she said something new. It's time for another show. I threw my phone out this morning. Didn't help, because as I'm writing this, I hear the hum of static from the other room. Faint but steady, and a red light blinking. My old microphone, the one I kept in a box at the back of the closet, it's on. And from the headset, soft, calm, familiar. Good evening, night owls. You're listening to Midnight Whispers. When I first moved into apartment 104, I thought I'd finally found peace. It was cheap, quiet, and close enough to work that I could walk. After years of couch surfing and scraping by, the idea of having my own place felt like a victory. The building wasn't fancy, but it had a strange charm. Old wooden floors, thick walls, the faint smell of dust and rain-soaked brick. The landlord, a pale, polite man named Mr. Avery, handed me the keys without much conversation. "Don't worry about the noise," he said. "Old pipes make strange sounds sometimes." At the time, I thought nothing of it. I wish I'd asked him what he really meant. The first few nights were fine. I unpacked slowly, cooked cheap dinners, and spent my evenings watching reruns on a small TV I'd found at a thrift store. But by the fourth night, I started hearing it, faint murmuring from somewhere behind the walls. At first, I thought it was my neighbors. The sound came late at night, low and steady, like a man and woman whispering to each other in another room. Their voices were indistinct, the kind of soft hum you can almost convince yourself you imagined. But as the hours passed, I realized they weren't coming from either side of the apartment. They were coming from inside the walls themselves. It didn't bother me too much at first. Old buildings make weird noises. I tried to ignore it, turned the volume up on the TV, and told myself it was the pipes like Avery said. But one night around 2 a.m., I woke to what sounded like my name, whispered, slowly, carefully, like someone testing it for the first time. "Daniel." My blood froze. The voice was faint, echoing behind my headboard. I sat up in bed and stared at the wall. Nothing moved, but I could hear soft breathing, not mine, someone else's. The next morning, I went to the landlord's office. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Any chance the walls here are thin? I've been hearing voices at night." He stared at me too long before answering. "Voices?" he repeated. "You must be hearing the plumbing. This place plays tricks on the ears." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. The voices didn't come right away this time. Hours passed in silence, and I almost relaxed. Then, just as I started to drift off, the whispering returned. Louder, closer. The same man and woman, speaking in tones too quiet to understand. I pressed my ear to the wall, heart hammering. Their words slid in and out of clarity, like a radio losing signal. Then I heard one of them laugh, a small broken giggle that didn't sound human at all. I jerked back from the wall. The laughing stopped instantly, replaced by the faint sound of scratching. Slow, deliberate scratching from inside the wall. I didn't sleep that night. When morning came, I found small cracks forming in the paint near the floorboards, thin as hairlines but fresh. When I touched one, a faint draft of cold air seeped through. I leaned closer, and for half a second I swore I heard whispering again, right against my ear. "Help us." By the end of the week, things had escalated. The whispering had become constant. I'd hear it in the shower, behind the bathroom tiles, in the kitchen beneath the sink, sometimes in the vents above the stove, always the same two voices, always murmuring about something I couldn't quite catch. I stopped turning off the TV at night because silence made them louder. When I finally fell asleep, I'd wake up to find the furniture slightly moved. The chair by the window turned to face my bed, the bathroom door half open, my keys on the floor instead of the counter. Then one night the power went out. Total darkness. The air was thick, heavy, humming with that low whispering. I fumbled for my phone flashlight and swept it across the room. That's when I saw it. The wallpaper near the corner of the living room was bulging outward, like something was pressing from behind it. I froze, my breath came in short bursts. The bulge rippled once, then twice. I took a cautious step forward. The surface pulsed under the beam of my light. Then in a voice that didn't sound male or female, just wrong, I heard it. "Daniel, let us out." I stumbled back, tripping over the couch. The wallpaper split down the middle with a long tearing sound. I saw what looked like fingertips pushing through the plaster, pale gray wet. I bolted. I didn't even grab my shoes. I ran straight into the hallway, pounding on the neighbor's door. No one answered. Every door I tried was locked. The entire floor was silent, like the building itself was holding its breath. I made it down to the lobby, but the front door wouldn't budge. The lock wasn't jammed, it was gone. Just a smooth hole where it used to be. I turned back toward the staircase and saw Mr. Avery standing at the top, dressed in a wrinkled gray suit, eyes wide open but blank. "You shouldn't be here after dark," he said quietly. His voice was trembling. "You shouldn't have listened." I started yelling at him, demanding to know what was happening, but he just kept shaking his head. "She doesn't like it when they listen." "She?" I asked, but he was already backing away, mumbling something I couldn't hear. Then he turned and disappeared up the stairs. When I got back to my apartment, the wallpaper was smooth again. No bulge, no hole, nothing. I almost convinced myself it was a hallucination, until I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, metallic, earthy, rotten, like old blood soaked into wood. It seeped out of the cracks near the floor and grew stronger each day. I cleaned, bleached, scrubbed. The smell never left. A few nights later, I was woken by a noise that I can still hear in my nightmares, the sound of someone crawling. Slow, heavy drags of limbs across the ceiling. I turned on the light. The ceiling bulged slightly with each movement. Dust drifted down. Then something wet dripped onto my pillow, thick and red. I scrambled out of bed. More droplets followed, splattering on the floor. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and shined it upward. A crack had split open along the beam above my bed, and inside, glistening through the gap, was an eye. A human eye, pale and bloodshot, staring straight down at me. I screamed and ran to the door, but it wouldn't open. I could hear something moving inside the walls, crawling, writhing, whispering. Dozens of voices now, all overlapping. "Let us out. Let us out." The entire apartment vibrated with the sound. Pictures fell from the walls. Plates shattered in the kitchen. The lights flickered and died. I pressed my back against the door, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Then from the darkness, one voice rose above the rest. Calm, deep, familiar, it was mine. "Daniel," it said. "You let us in." The floor split beneath me. The boards groaned and cracked, revealing a dark, wet tunnel below. Walls made of dirt and bone and something else I couldn't recognize. A smell like decay filled the air. I could hear crying from below. The sound of dozens of people whispering in unison. Faces began to form in the wood, mouths gasping silently, eyes open wide in agony. Their lips moved, shaping one phrase over and over. "You opened the wall." I don't remember falling. I just remember waking up hours later on the floor, covered in dust and dried blood. The apartment was silent again, perfectly still. No cracks, no eyes, no whispers. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I left that morning. I didn't take anything. When I reached the street, the building looked smaller somehow. The windows on my floor were boarded up from the inside. I tried to tell the police, but when they went to check, they said apartment 104 had been vacant for years. Condemned after a collapse, the officer said, flipping through a file. No tenants since 2019. That was 3 years before I moved in. I showed him my lease, the receipt, even the keys. None of it had Avery's signature. The address on the paperwork wasn't even for that building. It was for a lot across town, an empty field. I don't know what that place was or who or what Mr. Avery really was. But sometimes late at night I still hear it, faint like a radio through static, the whispering, the scratching. And every time I move into a new place, the first thing I check is the walls. Because I can still hear them, they're still whispering my name, and I'm starting to think, they're not behind the walls anymore, they're inside me,